Imagine being so phenomenally wealthy that you genuinely believe if you lift a rock, you're going to find gold underneath it. Well, today we are talking about a man who had exactly that kind of wealth. Yet, when confronted with the idea that his massive fortune might actually slow down his entry into the afterlife, he didn't hesitate. He gave away an entire commercial empire in a single day just so he could enter paradise standing up. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the life of Abdur-Rahman ibn Awf. He's this truly fascinating historical figure, a close companion of the Prophet Muhammad who basically conquered the world's wealth without ever letting that wealth conquer his heart. In this explainer, we're going to visually break down how he built a staggering fortune from absolutely nothing, the intense physical sacrifices he made along the way, and the meticulous, honestly astonishing way he distributed hundreds of millions of dollars before he died. Section 1. The Metamorphosis and Refusal. From Persecution to the Marketplace. So, born into the elite Seerah clan of the Quraysh tribe, his given name was actually Abd-Amr. But when he became one of the very first 8 people to accept Islam, the Prophet Muhammad gave him a new name, Abdur-Rahman, which literally translates to servant of the merciful. And man, this choice cost him. He faced unbelievable persecution in Mecca. I mean, he was forced to abandon his wealth and his home, not just once, but 3 times. After migrating twice to Abyssinia just to escape the torture, he finally made the ultimate migration, the Hijrah, to Medina in 622 CE. And he arrived there with absolutely nothing. Now, arriving flat-broke in Medina, the Prophet actually paired him up with Sa'd ibn al-Rabi, who was one of the wealthiest locals around. And Sa'd, in just this incredible act of generosity, offered Abdur-Rahman half of his entire fortune. Half! But his response tells you everything you need to know about his mindset. He politely turned down the handout. He didn't want to just depend on someone else, you know? Instead, he just looked at him and said, "May Allah bless you and your family and your wealth. Just show me the way to the market." Section 2. The Blessed Midas Touch, the hand that turns stone into gold. So he heads to the market and basically starts bootstrapping. He's trading super basic commodities. We're talking clarified butter, cheese, and curd. He didn't sit around waiting for a massive loan. He just relied on paper-thin profit margins and really fast, high-velocity trading. Buy, sell, reinvest. Boom, boom, boom. His success was so rapid, it was honestly almost miraculous. In fact, it birthed this legendary quote, "If I lifted a stone, I expected to find gold or silver beneath it." It perfectly captures his relentless optimism and just the sheer divine blessing on his hustle. And you know, all that hard work paid off almost immediately. One day he comes to the Prophet smelling of perfume, which was a clear sign back then that he'd just gotten married. When the Prophet asked him what he gave for a dowry, Abdur-Rahman said he paid 1 nuat. That's a weight of gold equal to a single date stone. The Prophet was absolutely thrilled for him and actually offered a special prayer for God to bless his wealth. And let me tell you, that blessing, it echoed through the rest of his life. But here's what you really need to understand about him. All that gold, it never made him soft. It is so easy to picture some wealthy merchant just hiding in safely behind the front lines, right? Not him. At the brutally dangerous Battle of Uhud, when the Muslim lines broke and it was total chaos, Abdur-Rahman was one of the very few who stood his ground, literally acting as a physical human shield for the Prophet. He took over 20 deep, severe wounds in that fight alone. One of those strikes actually caused permanent damage to his foot, leaving him with a lifelong limp. He might have held millions in his hands, but he wore his faith in his physical scars. Section 3. The Imam of the Imam, a unique spiritual honor. Fast forward to the Tabuk expedition. It was a time of brutal drought and a major financial crisis. Abdur-Rahman stepped right up, casually donating 2,000 gold dinars to finance the army. But during that journey, something happened that is completely unique in all of Islamic history. The time for the pre-dawn prayer rolled around, and the Prophet was temporarily away. Not wanting to miss the prayer window, the companions actually asked Abdur-Rahman to lead them. Right in the middle of the prayer, the Prophet arrives and just seamlessly joins the congregation, praying behind him. He became the only companion to ever lead the Prophet of Islam in a congregational prayer while the Prophet was fully healthy. I mean, what an unimaginable honor, right? Section 4. The Rumble in Medina, the 700-camel caravan. Okay, I want you to picture the cinematic scale of this next moment. One day, the normally quiet, peaceful city of Medina literally starts to vibrate. This low, rumbling sound echoes through the streets, and massive clouds of dust start blocking out the horizon. What was it?
It was Abdur-Rahman's commercial caravan arriving all the way from Syria. And the sheer size of this thing, we are talking 700 camels totally loaded down with wheat, flour, textiles, perfumes. It was an absolute mind-boggling fortune just rolling right into the city. But all this monumental wealth suddenly triggered a massive spiritual dilemma. Hearing all the commotion outside, the prophet's widow Aisha remembered a prophetic vision. She recalled the prophet mentioning that Abdur-Rahman might enter paradise creeping or crawling instead of walking swiftly like the other early companions, just because of the sheer weight and accountability of his immense wealth. When word of this reached him, it hit him like a ton of bricks. So it really begs the question, would his vast fortune ultimately slow him down?
Well, his response was immediate. And I mean radical. He rushed straight to Aisha to confirm what she said. Once he heard it directly, the choice was a no-brainer. He declared right then and there that to enter paradise standing up, he would surrender the whole thing. He literally gave away the entire 700 camel caravan, every single grain of wheat, every roll of silk, even the animals themselves. He distributed this unbelievable fortune to the needy of Medina in a single day. For him, wealth was just a tool. Paradise was the only real goal. Section 5. The Legacy of Axes, the Kingmaker, and the Estate. Years later, following the tragic assassination of Caliph Umar, Abdur-Rahman found himself as one of 6 men on the Shura, that's the Consultative Council, tasked with picking the next leader of the entire Islamic State. Seeing how deeply divided everyone was, he took total control of the situation. First, he voluntarily withdrew his own name from the running, but on one condition, that he gets to act as the sole, neutral arbitrator. For 3 grueling days and nights, he consulted with military commanders, elites, even everyday folks in the streets. Finally, to preserve unity, he appointed Uthman as the 3rd caliph. He basically acted as the ultimate kingmaker, putting the stability of the community way ahead of his own personal power. But here's the crazy part. Even after giving away whole caravans and funding armies, his pure business genius meant his wealth just kept growing. When he finally passed away, the historical accounts of his estate are just jaw-dropping. He left behind a legacy of gold so massive that it literally had to be physically chopped apart with heavy axes just to be divided up among his heirs. The classical chronicles actually record that the laborers swinging those axes worked until their hands were literally covered in blisters. That is how much physical gold we're talking about. Let's actually break down the historical math on this because it's wild. Classical sources say he left behind 4 widows. Now, under Islamic inheritance law, widows share 1/8 of the total estate if there are children. Each widow received 80,000 dinars, meaning that 1/8 slice of the pie was 320,000 dinars in total. If we reverse engineer that math, his total liquid estate was a staggering 2.56 million gold dinars. To put that into perspective for us today, using modern gold valuations, that liquid estate alone equals roughly 642 million US dollars. But what's truly inspiring isn't just the sheer amount, it's how he structured his final bequests. He wasn't just hoarding this for his kids. Beyond the mandated inheritance, he specifically tracked down the surviving veterans of the Battle of Badr, all 100 of them, and left them 400 dinars each to honor those early sacrifices. He also bequeathed this massive agricultural orchard, valued at 400,000 dinars, completely as an endowment to financially secure the prophet's widows. His wealth wasn't just money, it was incredibly strategic philanthropy. Section 6. The Eternal Merchant, Ascetic Dread, and Ultimate Bliss. Despite all these millions, he actually lived with this profound, almost terrifying ascetic dread. There's this incredibly moving story where a really lavish meal was placed in front of him after a long day of fasting, and he just looked at it and started weeping. He refused to eat it. He was remembering his fellow companions, like Musab ibn Umair, who died in such extreme poverty they didn't even have enough cloth to fully cover his body for a burial. Abdur-Rahman was absolutely terrified that he was getting all of his heavenly rewards too early, right here in this temporary world. So when he finally passed away, wrapped in a very simple shroud, Ali ibn Abi Talib delivered this beautiful, perfect eulogy. He said, "Go, O Ibn Awf, you have attained the best part of the world and surpassed its muddy part." Abdur-Rahman ibn Awf is ultimate proof that extreme prosperity and deep piety are not opposites, as long as you know exactly who is in charge. He controlled his money never ever controlled him. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to really chew on. Look at your own life, your pursuits, your bank account. If your wealth, your time, and your talents were put on a scale right now, would they be acting as your master or as a bridge to the divine? Think about that for a second. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.